Productivity hacks, anyone? If you're an entrepreneur, you know that efficiency in all you do is essential to be able to get to where you want to be. So stick with us to the end and find out how you can get more done by focusing on less.
Hi, I'm Deirdre Harter, a CPA and business strategy coach. And this is my partner, Carmen Reed-Gilkison, a certified whole person coach. We started our business, Encore Empire, to help women in midlife who want to grow a profitable business online in a way that leverages their unique life experience and honors their values to provide the financial and time freedom they've worked so long and so hard to attain. Now, productivity is often misunderstood. So today we're going to shine a light on three incredibly important concepts that will set you free. Number one, busyness does not equal productivity. The second concept is your worth is not based on what you do or don't get done. And number three is focusing on less is more. So let's start with busyness does not equal productivity. We see this all the time with our coaching clients, and typically busyness is really a cover for fear. Now, most of the time, busy work is not the important work that you should be doing. And productivity is not just about doing things efficiently. It's about spending time on the tasks and activities that are priorities and having measurable results at the end of the day, the week, or the month. Now, we often get these terms mixed up, being productive, being efficient. And it isn't that efficiency is not important, because it is. You want to do things in a way that are very efficient, and if you can save a step anywhere along the way, that's great, but it isn't enough. It's really more about understanding what are the things that really must get done, that are really important to get done, that bring about a result. Now, Parkinson's law is the adage that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. And what that means is that the longer amount of time you give something, generally we kind of stretch things out, right? Like think back to the last time that if you had a job in the past, or maybe you're working now and building your business on the side. But, when you had to get to work on time, and let's say that you set your alarm and you snoozed it 2 times too many, or it didn't go off, and normally you have 45 minutes to get ready, and now you've got 25 minutes to get ready. So what happens? You kick it up a notch, don't you? You get yourself ready and you get yourself out the door. Now, it doesn't mean that we should stress ourselves and push ourselves to the limit, but what it does show you is that things can always be shrunk down. Like you can get the result in less time when that is your intention, and that's what you need to do. Now, I know for me, when I used to go to work, if I gave myself an hour and a half in the morning before I had to go, I could very easily get absolutely nothing worthwhile done in that hour and a half. I could stretch it out, and have an extra cup of coffee and all these things. So it's just the idea I want you to get here about this Parkinson's law. Now, so how do you get around this? You do it by setting boundaries and priorities on your time. You have to be intentional. You have to decide, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of time. I'm going to basically budget. Okay. It's like a money budget only for your time. I'm going to budget this amount of time, and I'm going to do these particular activities because I know that they're the most important things for me to get done in order to do what I need to do. Now, we can, like a budget to actual in your finances, a budget to actual time. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to hit the mark. But if you don't have a plan, your time will dissipate. You will be very busy working very hard all the time. And then at the end of the day or at the end of the week, you're like, what did I really get accomplished? And that's how you can avoid this. Now, another way that you can get around this is by delegating, deferring, and deleting. So you should write those things down. Delegate, defer, and delete. And this must be done constantly. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about the delegating and deferring as we go through today's topic as we're talking about it. But the idea is, there's always more coming in. And when there's more coming in, then something has to go. I always like to think about my bookshelf. I love books. I have a bunch of books. And when I buy a new book, I now have this rule that one book in means another book out, because I've already maxed out my bookshelf space. And rather than buying another bookshelf, I decided, really, I've got like 4 and that's enough. So it's the same idea that if something comes in and you determine it's more important, then something else has to either be delegated to somebody else, defer it for later, or just delete it altogether if it really isn't that important. Now, I'm going to give you a few signs here so that you can see if you're being busy but not really productive. So these are the signs to look for. Number 1, if you have not prioritized your task list into urgent versus important, because urgent isn't always important, and important a lot of the times isn't urgent. So you have to understand the difference between those. And doing the important things is what needs to be a priority. Now, another sign is you're doing things that don't have a deadline when you have an actual deadline coming up. So if you know something's coming up and you're not ready for it yet, but yet you're doing these things over here that they don't have a deadline, they could be done at any point in time, that's a sign you're in busy mode. Yeah. Another sign is you get to the end of the day and you have been busy working all day for hours and you can't really determine what your results were. If you can't sit and write down 1 or 2 results of the day, then that's a sign you're just in busy mode. Another one is you aren't delegating. Now, no matter what stage of business you're in, even if you're a solopreneur, you must have someone to delegate to. That could be a virtual assistant. It could be a service provider, like, a website designer, a copywriter. It could be a friend or a family member, maybe someone to just go do some errands for you, pick up the groceries. No matter who you are and where you're at, you need someone to delegate things to, because you cannot do it all. And the last sign is you're constantly putting out fires. You feel like you're running around all the time and things just keep popping up that weren't planned. That's a sign that you're being busy and not productive. Or you're constantly switching hats. You're on a phone call 1 minute, then you jump over here and you have to do an email, and then you try to get your posts ready for social media, and then you're jumping over here to write the lesson for the next, for your client coming up. When you are jumping around all day long and switching hats back and forth, then it means you're in busy mode. Now, we do wear a lot of hats as entrepreneurs, but you need to keep the hat on for a period of time and don't switch it out every minute of the day.
That's right. And concept number 2 that we're going to cover today is that your worth is not based on what you do or do not get done. So let me say that again for those in the back. Your worth is not based on what you do or do not get done. And I think we fall into this trap. A lot of people glorify the fact that, I got so much done, or I checked 57 things off my to-do list today, or, we all get into that. And there's nothing wrong with doing that, except that if you're really buying into it, it can cause a huge confidence issue and mindset issue. So when you tie your self-worth to your achievements, you're not only setting yourself up for failure, but you're dishonoring yourself. And we don't want to do that. By the very virtue of being alive, you are an incredibly magical, powerful, and priceless human being. That's it. Your value is intrinsic to who you are. What you do or don't do, achieve or don't achieve, has zero bearing on your worth as a human being. So let's cut that false story and narrative that goes around that we might believe about ourselves, that maybe, your boss, your parents, your friends, I don't know who, anyone in your lifetime has been like, the more you do, the more they like you kind of thing. You don't have to worry about people pleasing. You don't have to please someone to be valuable. And I think we get, especially as women, we really get stuck in that rut, and it's a shame. And so I'm hoping that we can look at reality here and not get stuck in that. So not only do we give you permission to love yourself as you are, but we encourage you to seek guidance if you have a difficult time doing that. It's so, so important. Self-love, self-care, and self-worth are all tied to success and happiness. So if you're forcing yourself to meet someone else's unrealistic expectations, you'll never be happy or successful, and you'll be wasting a lot of time and energy. And a lot of times it's not someone else's unrealistic expectations, it's our own. We tend to be our own worst critics in 1,000 different ways. And we, that internal dialogue can be like, if I just could get this done, if I could just do that. And, if you're not looking at what you've done, being grateful for where you are, celebrating your little wins and your big wins, then you're constantly on this hamster wheel of, well, if I only do this, I'll be better. If I only do this, I'll be liked. If I only do this, I'll be valuable. And we don't want to do that. So productivity is tied to efficiency. So you can see how this mindset erodes efficiency, right? If you're thinking that I've got to do more so that people will like me or so that I'll be valuable, you're absolutely not being efficient. You're looking at the wrong metric. So we implore you to please work on understanding and knowing your self-worth and developing self-love.
Oh, that's so important. And the third thing that we're talking about today is focusing on less will allow you to achieve more. Now, that doesn't sound like it makes any sense, does it? But here's the thing. The key to achieving the result you want is to know exactly what you want to achieve and when you want to achieve it, and measure it at points along the way. Mm-hmm. So to focus is to have a single objective in mind and work toward it. Now, this does not mean you put blinders on and ignore everything else around you and, completely hunker down on the one thing, because life and business, they just don't work that way. There are things that come up. There are interruptions in our day. There are things that we didn't plan on that have to be taken care of. But what it does mean is to always know what you should be focused on and to have your schedule planned out so that allows you the time you need to focus on it. And when those things come up, by always knowing what it is, always having your eye on the prize, so to speak, that allows you to then get right back onto the schedule you need to be and get your focus back so that you're not off on some tangent. Now, this requires you to be able to move into an elevated perspective on a regular basis. Because if you're down in it, you're doing the work, and you're always looking down on the thing, you don't look up and kind of, look at the landscape and kind of go up a little bit above the trees to see, are you on track or not? Are you on the path you're meant to be on? Then you have to be able to make adjustments. And if you never take that higher perspective, you can't make those adjustments you need. Now, focusing on less means you have to choose a path or a project or a strategy, and you have to stick with it to completion before you start the next thing that you want to focus on. Now, your focus, you might achieve that result you need in an hour. It could be done in an hour time block. We're not talking about something that takes years. We're talking about, and maybe it will take a year. Like that is your, that's like your mission, or your goal for maybe your business. But we're talking about, it comes down to even a more granular level. You need to be able to know, what are you supposed to be focused on? Not only, here right now, but this week, this month, this quarter. You have to have these milestones in place and to know that you're hitting them. That's what prioritization is about. It's knowing where you want to go, having the plan and the path to get there, and then having those milestones along the way to say, have I done enough to reach the place I need to be in order to make the final destination?
Yeah.
Now, if you have too many priorities, this happens to me all of the time because I want to do it all. So if you have too many of those priorities, then nothing really is a priority, right? So too many priorities means you have to prioritize the priorities. You have to decide which one's more important than the other. And then you need to get the resource in place that you need to get it done.
That's right. So the bottom line is that focusing on what's most important is key. Your worth is not tied to your productivity. And multitasking is something we convince ourselves we can do when in reality it leads to inefficiency. Now, we dive deep into topics like this every Tuesday inside the Empire of Unstoppable Women Facebook group, and we'd love to see you there. We want to answer your questions, we want to support you, and we want to help you along your entrepreneurial journey. So join us at facebook.com/groups/Empire of Unstoppable Women. And the link is in the comments. We'll see you next time.